Sports movies that are based on true stories are not uncommon in Hollywood, from Miracle to American Underdog to The Rookie and so many more. These movies let the viewer experience all of the emotions of what the individual or team went through originally through cinema. A sport that lacks movies based on true stories is NASCAR. With all of its rich history from underdog champions to heartbreaking defeats, this sport has every storyline that you can think of. Now, if you were to pick any NASCAR race to be made into a cinematic masterpiece, what would it be? Several can be said immediately: the 1998 Daytona 500, the 2001 Pepsi 400, or even the 1992 Hooters 500. All have great storylines, and arguments can be made for any of them. The race that I want to suggest has multiple storylines that can make for a triumph or a tragedy. That is, whichever driver's perspective we follow throughout the race. This race is the 2007 Daytona 500. The date is February 18th, 2007. This is the final lap of the Daytona 500. Carnage erupts as cars crash out of control coming to the finish, but two cars make a breakaway to drag race to the finish line. One will forever achieve the ultimate dream, the Harley J. Earl Trophy, and the other will just collect their cash for finishing second. These two drivers have incredible stories as to why they are in the positions in the first place. The driver of the 01 is Mark Martin, returning to a part-time schedule after retiring from full-time racing. He was aiming for his first Daytona 500 victory in his 23rd attempt. The driver in the 29 is Kevin Harvick, the driver who replaced Dale Earnhardt after his tragic death 6 years to the date of this race. Both drivers are here, both drivers have their reasons, but how did they get to this point? Let's take a step back. The first half of this race saw a few lead changes and minor incidents. As teams worked to position themselves for the latter stages, veteran drivers like Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch were consistently at the front, showing their mastery of restrictor plate racing and their impressive cars. So you might wonder, how do the most dominant cars of the race up to this point have no existence in the finish that I just showed? Well, the answer is simple. They both aren't even on the racetrack anymore because their cars were already junked.
Crash in turn 4. And there in the midst of it sits Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch, the two leaders.
I'm not sure, but I believe Tony got a little loose all at once.
This is the first action that has to happen to get us to that finish. In the final stretch of the race, Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch's dominance came to a sudden end on lap 153, when Stewart's car got loose and collided with Busch's, sending them both into the wall and out of contention. This crash dramatically altered the race, eliminating the top two strongest cars and leaving the outcome wide open. Following this incident, cars made their way onto pit road for adjustments. After the pit stops and a shuffle in the running order, Martin Truex Jr. took the lead, followed by Mark Martin, one of our main characters from earlier. A change in pit strategy and timing of cautions got the 01 Army Chevrolet into the second spot. When the race restarted and the intensity picked up, drivers jostled for positions, each aiming to secure a chance to win the sport's biggest race. As the sun set behind the grandstands, the pressure grew until finally it boiled over, resulting in a multi-car wreck.
Mark gave him some room, and there they go.
There's Jimmy Johnson, the 48 car. Here we go.
Tony Raines with him, Denny Hamlin.
That was inevitable. It had to happen. You can't be this late in the race, be bunched up like that, and not have trouble.
With 27 laps to go, a crash on the backstretch took out several notable drivers, including defending Daytona 500 champion Jimmy Johnson, along with Denny Hamlin. Tony Raines, Jeff Green, and David Ruderman were also involved. Though this crash seemed minor at the time because it was in the back of the pack, it set off a chain of events that led to the dramatic finish. This in turn was action number 2 that got us to the finish that we saw at the beginning of this video. After another round of pit stops, Mark Martin inherited the lead. The veteran driver had raced for Jack Roush for 20 years, and now Mark Martin was leading the Daytona 500 with a real shot at victory with a team that was considered an underdog. The race restarted with 21 laps to go, and as the laps ticked down, the intensity only grew. With 16 laps left, another crash unfolded. Despite the chaos, Mark Martin continued to lead. With 10 laps to go, Martin, who I previously mentioned had spent 2 decades racing for Jack Roush, now found himself leading in front of 3 of Jack Roush's Fords. But Kyle Busch soon worked his way into the second spot and pressured Mark Martin, even getting him loose at one point, but Martin held his ground. If the race remained green, Mark Martin was going to win the biggest race of his life, but sometimes things don't work out perfectly.
Oh, there's a car in trouble.
Jamie McMurray, the 26 car, bounces off the outside wall.
And around they go.
Ricky Rudd, the 88 car. Caution will be out.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
With 5 laps to go, Jamie McMurray crashed, collecting Ricky Rudd, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Martin Truex Jr. This wreck brought out the red flag with just 3 laps remaining. During this break, I want to talk about the other main character from the beginning of this video, and that's Kevin Harvick, who was in 30th place just 20 laps earlier. He had made his way through the carnage and worked his way into contention, now sitting in 7th with his own Cinderella story on the line. So to recap, as the race neared its conclusion, 2 major storylines unfolded. Could Mark Martin in his 23rd attempt finally win the Daytona 500, or would Kevin Harvick, driving Dale Earnhardt's old car on the 6th anniversary of Earnhardt's tragic death, complete the ultimate comeback? The stakes were cinematic, with history and destiny seemingly intertwined. One driver on defense and the other on offense. Unfortunately for Mark Martin, playing defense was going to be tougher than Kevin Harvick attacking on offense. Mark Martin was a lone wolf as he had no teammates around him, and even under the red flag, radio chatter revealed Martin pleading with his spotter to find allies to help him hold off the hungry pack.
Need to find Jeff Burton. Need to find somebody that'll be my friend, Jeremy, here in this deal. I know everybody's for themselves, but we got a shot at this thing. We need, if this thing scatters, we need some helpers. We can win this thing.
He was known as one of the cleanest drivers in the field, and now he found himself alone at the front, defending against a hard-charging field as the green-white checkered finish approached. When the race restarted, Martin led the pack, and as they approached the white flag, it seemed like this Cinderella story might finally come true.
White flag, 1 lap to go.
Front 4, single foul.
There they go. They got to go. They got to get Mark moving. They got to move him somehow.
Gets back to that yellow line right around the bottom, all the way through turn 1 and 2.
Mark Martin is driving the race of his life. And there's nobody that's better at holding people off at Daytona.
And that Busch lagged back a little bit. Is he going to get help? Is he going to come? He's looking.
Back behind you.
He almost squeezed Harvick into the wall, and here comes Harvick, the 29, with Matt Kenseth.
Oh, Mark got loose. Mark got loose.
And Harvick's getting a run off turn 4. It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line.
Crash, here they come, checkered flag, Harvick.
And just like in any cliche Hollywood movie about racing, the 2 main characters drag race to the finish line while the rest of the field crashes behind them. And for a moment, 3 hours of racing is no longer about 41 other cars. It's only about 2, 1 winner and 1 loser. Kevin Harvick would charge past Mark Martin coming out of turn number 4 and drag race him to the finish line to steal a deserving win from him. That is, if you look at it that way. If you look at it a different way, you could see it as Kevin Harvick in a Dale Earnhardt-esque fashion, driving through the field and winning the Daytona 500, honoring his legacy and life. And that is why, no matter the way you look at this finish, I believe it is the perfect candidate for a movie. So with that said, I leave it to you. Would you want to see the 2007 Daytona 500 as a movie? If so, what would you look forward to? Would you like to see it through Mark Martin's perspective, or would you like to see it through Kevin Harvick's perspective? If you don't think this race would make a good movie, what other races would you like to see become movies? Comment down below. I appreciate everybody for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.